Hello and welcome to a special edition of Working as Intended, your World of Tanks stream, normally on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4 to 6 p.m. and 6 to 8 p.m. respectively. So we have a special dev stream set up today, so apologies for my video and audio being a bit choppy. We're on a video call. We got a bunch of our community coordinators and well as two of our highest profile devs we could get for you guys. Actually, they're just the highest, not the highest profile. But we're very excited. We're going to launch into some questions here from the CCs to the devs pretty quick. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. I will not have chat up as I usually do this chat or this stream, so apologies if I miss you. I will catch you next Tuesday. And on that note, I think we're ready to go and introduce the devs. Hello, everyone. So here with us, we have Maxim Chuvalov, our publishing director for World of Tanks, and Andrey Biletskiy, our creative director for World of Tanks. Hi.
Hey guys. Hey guys. Nice to be here.
Thank you so much for joining. Oh.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going? So I know it's kind of late evening for you guys, but thank you for joining us.
It is. It is a late evening of quarantine Friday, week 8. So.
Oh yeah, week 8. I can't believe it's been that long already. Time has lost all meaning for me. So real quick, if you guys could give the folks at home an idea of what you do on a daily basis on World of Tanks in your capacities as the publishing and creative director.
Okay, so I think I will start because Andrew has much more interesting story about what he's doing, so I will be quite brief. So as publishing director, I observe and supervise everything what's going on with our community, all the activities, all the events, offline events, gatherings, and also part of commercials, etc. So I'm trying to make the contact with community much better, try to get all the feedbacks that we got from community and pass them to development team so they can get much more context of what gamers in different regions want and need, and also all the promotional materials, videos, etc., etc. It's my team around the world. They're doing all this beautiful stuff.
And Max said that his story is not interesting.
I think it's interesting.
Mine is much more grounded. So before he is starting his job, right? Me and my team of designers are trying to figure out what we are about to build, then try to formulate it across the board in a pretty short, kind of one-pager form, and then design coming to me and validating what we agreed on. Then they go and think more, and then come back and bring more stuff, and kind of like a ball against the wall, bidding their ideas against me, and I'm being a final judge on is it what we agreed on? Is it what we are pushing game towards to? Sounds pretty simple. However, we are running basically, I'd say 50 to 55 streams like that any single moment. So I have a lot of work like that to do, and have to keep in mind all the time that what's going on everywhere at the same time, kind of what I have said to everybody, and what they're supposed to bring to me every next time. Much more boring, to be honest.
Well, I know one of the exciting things you do is when we're coming up with new features for World of Tanks, you write a player narrative, right? So you write out an idea of what the player is going to experience as a result of the feature?
Yep, I do. It is a foundation for that very first one-pager. So this is an idea that is passed to design to become a grounding bit for them to think about and to work on.
All right. Looks like we got Max's camera working. So you can all enjoy his beautiful face and artful brick wall.
Yeah, sometimes switching off and then on again helps.
That is, of course, the primary role of IT. If it's not working, turn it off, turn it back on again. All right. Well, I think let's go introduce our community contributors, and then we'll get into the Q&A part of this. Okay, we have changed channel. We are now here with 13 Disciple, Cody Mins, and Nick Shocks.
Hi, everyone.
For those of you who aren't familiar, they are all members of our World of Tanks NA community contributor program. You can catch 13 Disciple over at 1313disciple. He's got a bunch of great guides, including the ever brilliant IS-7 3-mark guide, which can teach even numbskulls like me how to perform well in that Russian standard. We have Cody Menz, the self-proclaimed, but most people seem to buy Watt Guru. You can catch him at wattguru.com and his Twitch stream at Cody_men. 13 Disciple, by the way, at twitch.tv/13disciple. And finally, we have Nick Shocks, who's one of our long-term competitive players turned Twitch partner. One of our biggest current NA Twitch streamers over at twitch.tv/Nick_Shock.
Oh,
I consider all of them game expert, and I'm happy to have their more educated opinions here. Good questions on your chat, your behalf, to get answers out of Andrey and Maxim. All right, I think we're ready.
cool.
All right, everybody's in the panel now. Intros have been completed. I think we're ready to launch into the question and answer section of the stream. I believe 13 Disciple, you are starting.
All right, I have the pleasure of the first question, but I just want to take a second and thank you guys for attending the Q&A. I really appreciate that. All right.
Thanks for inviting.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we'll start off with a light, pretty easy question here. So the most complained aspect of the tier 8 to 10 wheeled EBRs are the wheels acting like shields. From a balance perspective, can the damage mitigation provided by the wheels be reduced? And perhaps could we see damaging wheels contribute to assisted damage?
I think Andrew can take this part.
Yeah, probably it's mine. So we are considering right now, but as we announced about a month ago in a big stream in Minsk, that we're going to nerf wield in general. It might include, will be based on prototyping outcomes, might include some changes to how wheels contribute to damage mitigation. But generally speaking, our first intention is to change the way how damaging the wheel impacts the vehicle ability to move. So at the moment, it's basically retain for significant amount of damage taken. So you need to damage at least half of the wheels on the vehicle to make a visible difference. So we're going to change that. In case it's not gonna be enough, we will look further on. Just for your consideration, the wheels themselves, they look like skirts, or they work like skirts on other vehicles. So they're being penetrated, but they strongly reduce the penetration factor of any shells that hit them. And it leads to the situation when non-pen shots are happening. So this is, like, I'd say a second tool for us to tune in case our primary idea will not be enough.
So they act like spaced armor.
Basically, they are, just like tracks, they are spaced armor.
Gotcha.
So the question is how thick they are, and for wheeled vehicles, they are basically really thick, and some of them are solid metal, if we are talking about like reality. So some of them are pretty effective screens. We acknowledge that. So as I said, we will start with reducing or increasing the effect of damaging wheels and decreasing vehicle mobility more in case any of the wheels are damaged. If we will see it's still problematic for people to properly aim and shoot wheeled vehicles, then we will probably make further steps.
Excellent, thank you.
All right. There's a pretty solid answer there. Those fully metal wheels are quite armored. You want to move on to your next one there? 13?
I'm sure we can drop into the next question. So, just so you guys know, we have the World of Tanks wiki from Wargaming, And inside the wiki, it's posted and it says, "It should be noted that driving while being on fire increases the extinguishing time considerably." Now, we've debated this in my clan a lot, whether that's true or not. And so I'd like to hear from the devs themselves whether that is actually true.
So I'll take this one as well.
Yes.
Guys, I believe that Mac's team should double check what's written in English version of Wiki, because I specifically checked this particular question while we were working on equipment TO that we also announced it recently, and it's not true.
We finally have an answer.
No. The fun fact is, maybe, I sincerely do not remember, maybe it was true very long time ago. Maybe. Because as a player, way before I joined Wargaming and way before I went to World of Tanks team, I thought it works this way as well. Huh. So when we started to look into equipment TO, and also crew TO or 3O, I lost count of number of iterations already, right? So we looked into each skill individually, and this was one of the questions. Like, is that? No, I think it's an error in Wiki. And to be honest, I'd suggest our teams to double or triple check what's in there, because it might, if we got one error there, maybe there are more.
Yeah, sure. I think
that's not.
We need to check it. We need to check the wiki and fix it. Yeah.
Okay. I made a note to update the wiki on engine fire. I made the link after the stream 13.
You got it.
It makes a certain amount of sense physically, right? If you're blowing air around, but we'll figure that out. In the meantime, Nick, would you like to ask your first question? We'll get a bit of a rotation going.
Yeah, for sure. Again, same as Disciple said, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to hopefully get some information on things. My first question is probably the most important one to me, at least, particularly when it comes to the balancing of the game. When we look at tanks like the 268 version 4, right, or the Type 5, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think people needed to be particularly smart to see that they were clearly overperforming. Why is it situations like that it takes, let's say, 6 months to fix it, where, I mean, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't make the game. What leads to decisions taking that long for things that seem so clear?
I think I will mute my mic for now on, because more questions about balance, and I think Andrew is the man.
You can have an app, maybe.
Sorry.
So, guys, it's to be honest, there are two reasons bosses might sound stupid for you. So the reason number one is patch cadence, is how we plan the development, and what's happening with the team once they finish something and move on to something else. So effectively, it's periods that are roughly a quarter of the year, sometimes 2 quarters. So a team switched, and there will be a follow-up, but it will be aligned to this quarter, because they then need to dive into something completely different. This is reason number one, not for tank balancing, but for many other pieces. For tank balancing, we try not to trust our judgment, because it's very subjective, and try to trust data that is significantly less subjective.
Right.
Every time something is changing, and it's repeatable pattern that happens every time with every patch, with everything we introduce or change. There is a group of early adopters, like, oh, they buffed whatever Type 5 heavy, who jump on that tank, and coincidentally, these early adopters are pretty skilled guys. So we know from practice that trusting statistics for first 3 to 6 months is a bad idea. Unless something is so much off the grid that it becomes visible instantaneously. So if we are talking 268/4 or variant 4, I think it didn't took us half a year to nerf it. I think it was significantly quicker, maybe in next patch or patch after the next one, if my memory serves me well right now. However, for Type 5, it was looking normal from data point of view for a pretty long time before a big mass of players started to move onto it, and we started to see the data from more than one skilled guys only cluster. Because skilled guys only, they tend to overperform basically in any vehicle. And if we will utilize this kind of, oh my god, this guy have 75% of win rate on Type 5 heavy, we should nerf Type 5 immediately without checking that this guy normally have, 78, we would do a lot of errors. So, as I said, it might sound not too smart. However, we try to be as objective as possible. And before we have a solid proof that is repeatable on multiple groups of people, and we can validate that the vehicle changes win rate of certain people or constantly overperforms, doesn't matter how good player is driving it, before that we are trying not to touch anything. Because otherwise it would be just tweaking all the time, everything, all the ways, and nobody will be happy anyway. So that's the answer. It's rather, safe than sorry, despite we are sorry.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Do you mind if I just reply to that?
Excuse me?
I understand where you're coming from. I have another question regarding that. You mentioned that skilled players, right, are the ones that get hands on it first. By the nature of them being skilled players, would that not then mean they have a pretty good idea of the game and what is balanced and what isn't? So why would their data be, or even input, be less relevant, right? Because you have people who are, you could say, experts of the game. You have people, that are out and out unicums. Why would their opinion not be taken into account? Because wouldn't they then be the people that have the best opinion of it? Again, let's say the V4 in its current state.
So look, what we are trying to track is not numbers as they are, but rather like a fluctuation from normal values that are being produced. So I'll try to explain it in a simpler way. Imagine this. Let's say you're a very good player. I don't know, 70%. I don't know for sure, to be honest, but maybe. And you're jumping on a vehicle, and you might call it overpowered, but we can see that vehicle does not actually change your win rate or your meaningful statistics in any way. So you're still doing just like you're supposed to do, just like model predicts. Then it means that everything is fine with you. What can happen else that, for example, me, and I'm pretty mediocre player who's 51%, if I will take this vehicle can drag me down and say, you know what, man, playing me, you're 48 or 47. This means that it's not only not being overpowered, it actually requires a buff, probably, unless we position it originally as a very skill-dependent vehicle. There are other cases when, and we have plenty of vehicles like that, that behave like this. So a vehicle in the hands of a very skilled player make him even more effective. However, in the hands of very unskilled player, it is making him significantly less effective. So it's kind of bad both ways. And if we will nerf it outright, it will make next waves of adopters suffer even more. We also know that if we will nerf it outright, it means that lots of people will not even try it, so we will never see the data. So as I said, it looks like more secure for us on a long run to let it cool down of sort in hands of audience, then see how it works for all segments of audience, and then make a intelligent decision.
Okay.
At the same time, it's pretty well aligns with how we plan our work. So we have this 3 months windows where we just let it cool, and the team can do something different, and then switch back, analyze everything that's going on, unless Max guys will start beating bells and swinging red flags really quickly, like with 2688/4. So that's the principle. Sorry if I disappoint you with the answer.
That's okay. I appreciate the feedback regardless. Thank you.
Just a point of clarification, just from Andrey's first answer, the method he mentioned was all about eliminating this objective. So it wasn't that the opinions weren't being taken into account, just that they're at that time looking only at data and only at player performance relative to past performance. So opinions are reported on separately. There's two different avenues of feedback on how things are being updated in the game. One is community feedback, like from people like yourself, and one is the data that the devs look at that Andrey mentioned. So I think we're ready to pass over to a question from Cody real quick. Not real quick, as long as you want to take.
All right, well, like 13 and Nick said, thanks again for doing a Q&A here, giving us the option to ask some questions. So I guess my first question, to kind of do something separate from like balancing stuff right now. We just saw collection and like collector tanks get added into the game. Are there any plans to kind of add more tanks into these collector tanks, or even do like a multinational like tank collection where people could buy tanks from different nations down the road?
Right now we just added the collector's tank, and they were as a part of tank trees cleanup, how we call it, right? So we made a lot of tank trees, a lot of national tank tree, much more logical, much more straightforward, much more understandable for new players. And as a additional part of this feature, we introduced collector's shop, right? Where everyone can buy a vehicle of all the tiers just for credits if they just opened this tier in a correspondent nation. So right now we have a lot of ideas how to improve and develop this feature. It's not something that is very urgent to our point of view. We have much more things for this upcoming year to be solved, and you all saw the sandbox with rebalance, for example, where part of the features were taken to additional R&D, and we have a lot of things to do according to anniversary, like 10 years anniversary of World of Tanks, and many events for our players that we already prepared. Yes, it's in our backlog, or how we call it, like pool of ideas, and we will think how to develop this further on. Right now, I unfortunately cannot share any details because it's all on the very concept stage yet, and nothing to be shared. So it's not clear right now when we're gonna dive into it and start developing it. So I cannot even promise it will be next year. So right now, a lot of things we have to do much faster and before we touch the collectible shop.
Right, thanks for the answer.
Can I add up a little bit more?
Yeah, sure.
You basically pointed it pretty nicely, because it is a tool that opens up a possibility that we lacked before. Question will be, what will be criteria for players to unlock specific vehicles, in case we will, for example, think about our Argentinian tank. There is one, as far as I remember. or maybe Hungarian tanks, or maybe some other countries that didn't produce tanks en masse as a big geopolitical chessboard players did. So potentially this is the way, and we got a door now. Before that, we had no door. We were considering, it's like, a sneak peek into what's happened behind the closed doors. We were considering in last year, when we defined the roadmap for this year, we were considering building up a multinational tree. But it was super cumbersome for us to make. And that moment, we decided it does not worth an effort exactly this time, while we still have an interesting ideas like right in front of us on the plate. But it's, as Max said, it's in the backlog. So who knows? But yeah, we got them in now. Got a tool.
Yep.
Thanks for that one. All right, so we've done a full round of questions, and I've got to interject my own question. We want to keep Max talking so he doesn't get bored. So Max, could you tell us briefly about some of your unique approaches to the NA region and my team?
I think I could pass a word to you as well, but okay, let's start. Oh, nice helmet, by the way, Cody. So yeah, definitely we do a lot of work in every region, and we are trying to develop interesting activities in the game and outside the game. And as you saw, for example, we had like exclusive activities for North America during this year. Like World of Tanks Salute and What Rewards got reincarnated, right? So you don't find yet such activities from other regions. So it was exclusively built for NA and actually drawn by NA team as a part of like production group for those features. And we really like to work together with team in Austin to elaborate more on such ideas that will be of great use to a local community. And also, speaking of offline events, we participated in TwitchCon, for example, right? And we also have some plans on collaborating with tank museums in the future as well, to open up some more interesting experience in real life for our players. And definitely there are many aces in the sleeve for North American region for upcoming period, and for 10 years anniversary as well. So we've got some surprises for you guys as well.
And for those of you who don't know, regular viewers of our streams might. We've actually opened our first museum installation at the Ontario Regiment Museum in Oshawa, Canada. If you're in Ontario, highly recommend checking it out once all of this craziness dies down and we can start going places in public. So very cool, and more of that to come. Very excited about that personally. I do have one more general question for both you and Andrey, Max. Specifically, we just launched 1.9. It's been a bit of a hectic patch, I'd say. We're changing a lot of things at once, a lot of vehicles jumping tiers, a lot of statistics being changed. Do you have any general commentary on the sandbox for the ammo changes and the lead up to ultimately the release of 1.9 and what it ended up containing?
Max, would you like to start first, and then
I can. Yes, I can. So yeah, guys, for you to understand how we treated this, it was a real big and complex, I would say, set of features under one umbrella, which we called like New Balance. And we had about 4 sandboxes with that in different iterations, in different configuration. And in the end, we understood that it was too complex to get into production in one piece. That's why we split it, and the good, like obviously good part, got into production, into live servers, and a portion of that got into R&D once again for us to find some more ways to make it happen. And for us, it was a real good example of working all together with community, and I'm really thankful for everyone who took part in sandboxes and send us their feedbacks on different platforms, on social media, YouTubes, and forums, and direct messages, etc., etc. So it was all gathered and analyzed, and so you guys can directly influence on the game development. And I really appreciate it because without like players' feedback and those data, those statistics that we got from Sandbox, we definitely much more right now confident of how to proceed with that. So for more details about the exact parts of that, I will give word to Andrey.
Yeah, thank you, Max. For us, it was like a collection of different features, not specifically one sandbox or a mono block of sort, a single unit. Out of that, as you all know, we took some and brought them to live servers. However, the rest was different evaluation from our side and from community side are returned back to development to iterate more on that. So the only thing that we can guarantee at the moment is nothing else will happen with live servers without the next stage of sandboxing. So during the first sandbox, we indeed collected lots of data, both subjective, like real data, and subjective, by asking people who played and didn't play it sandbox different questions and trying to compare them. So what makes us kind of optimistic about the direction we took is there is a big difference, a notable difference in feedback from people who did and didn't play it, the sandbox version. So people who didn't play it are generally much more scared about the change, see lots of unknown in front of them, worried, and tend to rate the whole idea pretty badly. People who have played the game on Sandbox have much better rates for all the stuff we tried. That still differs in between bits and pieces of the Sandbox. So in particular, shells, gold shells or special shells and basic shells, changes were rated rather highly, and it happened across several installments of Sandbox. At the same time, high explosives changes and SPG changes were significantly less popular. Let's put it this way. At the moment, we think that these bits are inseparable, so they have to be tweaked one by one, but shipped together, because all of them are following the same ideology of picking up the right tool for a particular situation. Thus, we rolled everything back, put designers back to the whiteboards with markers, and we are doing the next big iteration on what's happening there.
So I have a follow-up to that, Sandbox, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
So I know last year you guys reworked the Leopard and the STB1, and you sort of morphed them to fill more niche roles to kind of separate them from the pack of all the tier 10 mediums. And I'm kind of wondering if you've ever considered taking that same approach to the ammunition rework. So not just modifying the damage and the penetration of each shell to differentiate it, but maybe to also take a look at shell speed or the way the normalization is, or even like the sigma distribution within the standard 25% RNG to make each shell feel more direct in its intention for, you know, the tactical advantage that you might have or the tactical situation that you have on the battlefield.
With that, at the moment, we believe that it is way too much legwork that won't be noticed or will not have a significant impact. We did several prototypes with sigma changes for different shell types. even different shell specifications. However, once a person who has no idea on what has been changed starts to shoot, he cannot notice any difference, and that was very funny.
Oh, that is interesting.
So it's it's like a self-programming or a prophecy that happens because people knew that the prophecy has been said, proclaimed. So the moment the person had no idea that Sigma changed, he was shooting and said, okay, so it works fine. What would you want me to do with that?
That's very interesting.
So it's more a question of perception, it seems, rather than actual changes.
Yeah.
So far, by saying, okay, guys, let's keep in mind you have 3 different shells all the time, and there is a reason for you to switch from one to another every battle several times. It seems complicated enough already to be introduced. But as I said, we tried some of what you offered, not with damage corridors or penetration corridors. We didn't try that. But again, my gut feeling is saying the outcome will be exactly the same, because especially if you don't really see the numbers. I have this story I really like to tell from time to time about the issue with playing on the same map over and over again that has been plugged in the game a few years ago, if you remember.
Okay.
It was pretty loud. I recall we were visiting Seattle PAX in, I think, late 2016 and meeting players there, and it was one of the hottest questions back then.
Yeah,
like, I'm playing the game and I'm playing the same map all the time. So the fun stuff is we didn't change anything.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Sort of. What we did change, we didn't touch the algorithm that was distributing what maps are being issued to arenas where players are locked in. What was changed, we said, you know what, let's guarantee that player will not see the same map over a sequence of 7. So it can be 8s, but it cannot be 7s or 6s or 5s. And all the complaints disappear immediately, despite the frequency of players seeing that same map didn't change at all. It's the distribution that has changed. So back before the change, I was probably playing on, I don't know, Himmelsdorf 2 times in a row, and then maybe in 10 more battles 1 or 2 more times. And in 2 days, my memory was telling me I was playing Himmelsdorf all day long. The only thing that has changed is the distribution. So back to your question now. Sorry for this off-topic.
That's all right.
Tale. But what I think is that unless we will try to really stress that something has changed somehow, the only thing that basically our memory, not player's memory, but human memory, will retain in a time, it's deviation from norm.
Yeah.
So something that happens abnormally often or not often. So tests that we did inside kind of proven on limited amount of changes that it is so.
So
I cannot say the difference.
Yeah, I don't mean to dominate the conversation. I just got to squeeze in one more question on that shell rebalance. So one of the things that I personally struggle with the most is I love World of Tanks. There are so many things about this game that make it so good. But the thing that I struggle with the most when it comes to recommending it is Gold Round specifically, because of their cost. You have this system where the only balancing factor for the shell is the cost of the shell right now. Granted, you're doing testing. And for me, I see it as a pay for advantage mechanic. Players that can afford premium time can afford to fire more of these shells. And it's for that reason that I just struggle so much to try and sell this game to family members or friends. So what I'd like to see in a shell rebalance is some form of normalizing the cost between all the shells. So when I'm in a battle, I'm not thinking about the cost of the shell, I'm thinking about its tactical value. Have you considered that?
Probably the answer will be yes and no.
Fair enough.
So let's start with no. The way we determine the cost is what let's call it effective damage per minute. So this is an integral number that defines a combination of probability to deal damage combined with a damage value. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So special shells at the moment have higher effective damage per minute than the normal ones. And as game economy runs around several variables, including damage done, or damage dealt, they effectively allow you to earn more.
I see what you're saying. So when you're firing normal shells, you say you pen 1 out of 4. But if you fire
you're probably a bad shooter then, but yeah.
Right. But you pen 4 out of 4, so the cost should be a quarter of the special shell, is what you're telling me, based on the damage.
Basically, yes. It is a fundamental logic, and it also linked to the fact how big alpha I will hit at this moment. So the bigger the alpha, the bigger will be a factor I will multiply.
Gotcha. So
as a general rule.
So maybe as you adjust the alpha, maybe you can adjust the cost. Maybe not as much, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
This is one of the tasks that we will have to resolve once we will be positive that the changes are correct. Because with basic shells doing higher damage, it's also effectively increase the rate they earn money.
Gotcha.
We either will need to change the rate itself, because everybody also got more HP, and to avoid inflating all the currencies across all the game and rising prices everywhere and keep everything in balance, we will have to adjust the rates per HP. But at the same time, the ratio of damage and effectiveness for special shells will also change. So several shells will immediately become kind of off limit and will be repriced.
That makes a lot of sense. I actually really appreciate that answer. Yeah. So your cost is based on its effectiveness, is what you're telling me.
Yes. It is a reflection, because otherwise it would become really strange. But shooting the shells that are better is making you more money.
Right. Yeah, I understand.
Okay, that was actually a really interesting dive into premium ammo that I don't think we've heard before. I really appreciate that as well. All right, just keep things moving. Nick, if you're ready, shoot another question across.
Yeah, cool, thanks. So as far as it was just mentioned, the Leopard and STB, at least for me and people in my community on my stream, those changes have been received pretty positively. I personally believe the Leopard and STB are two of the best tech tree mediums in the game right now. I'd love to see, and is there any word of similar style changes for tanks such as the E50M, the AMX-30B, the T62A, so on and so forth. And the Object 430U was supposed to go through some nerfs a while ago. What's the word on that as well, if you could?
Just keep going, Andrey.
Oh, come on.
Sorry.
Okay, so
my time will come.
I bet. Trick here is to find a niche. Some of you told a few minutes ago that it was really cool that you find a niche for Leopard 1 and STB 1. The trick is find a niche. We have plenty of tier 10s, and plenty of them are medium tanks as well. And to make them diverse enough is a tricky story, without making them either overpowered or underpowered or super situational, that tanks that cannot be basically used on specific kinds of maps or something, things like that. So generally speaking, yes, that's what we want to do. We want to find everybody their niche and make them live there happily ever since. However, the evolution of the game, running and fighting with us all the time on that. So we do have a plan on changing specific vehicles this year that we were postponing for a while because of our high hopes on the sandbox balance version. If it would be more successful than it was, basically a failure on our part, and we would push that further on, we would do all the changes kind of in one swing. However, I said it didn't happen already. So we will do several passes of plastering the game balance at the moment in upcoming month.
Okay.
Hopefully, we will reach E50M. It was my very first tier 10 I got in the game, so I
Yes,
have
please.
personal feeling for that particular vehicle.
It was my first as well.
So yeah, we're probably Germanophiles with Max here. So I really loved 1-2-1, and back when I was living in Canada, so I was playing in North America cluster in 2012, 2013. I was in a clan, and that clan was asking me to level up to 62A. That was a meta tank back then in clan stuff. However, I was resistant to that by no rational, and was proven then that 1-2-1 is the better vehicle to have. So I feel for 1-2-1 as well.
Okay.
Right now it is it's in a hard period of time, or having hard time competing with 430.
Right.
And they're indeed pretty similar. I mean, as from an engineering standpoint, as real life projects, it's a semi-heavy, semi-medium, well-armored, strong turret, big gun vehicles with medium mobility. Or medium to high. And we had exactly this issue with Leopard 1 STB IMAX 30B. They were pretty fast, light armored, very precise, weak turret, sniperish vehicles. And we did, if you recall, we did several attempts to fix that, and thanks God one of them was a success. So I think the time will come. The problem is, I'm not sure that that will happen fast. So finding the right recipe for Leopard and STB was one of the reasons for us to pick 30B as a collector vehicle. You see where I'm leading?
Yeah, I know where you're coming from. Particularly on the 430 though. I mean, as far as that tank in the game comparatively, you mentioned they are similar to the 1-2-1, right? They're similar in the sense of the idea, where, as you mentioned, they both have big guns, they're both mobility, so on and so forth. But they're so far removed as far as how you can really play them the same. In the sense of the 1-2-1, you'll get penned in the upper plate, very easily, whereas the 430U, it's just not the case. And I have a hard time kind of understanding how just the 1-2-1 maybe getting acknowledged a bit more, whereas this needs to be changed, we understand it's a problem, would go a long way with players. Because from the average perspective, people might not see or realize that the 1-2-1's a problem, you know what I mean, whereas maybe just by acknowledging, hey, this is definitely not working as we'd like it to, and it is on our list of things to work on. Might go a long way. At least it would for me, and I'm sure people feel the same.
So, okay, that's official. 1-to-1 is a problem.
Thank you.
I too fell for
the idea, but I didn't mean to force into that. But like the idea of maybe people seeing that you realize things are not as intended would go a long way for helping people realize that we are on the same team here. You guys are trying to make the game better. That's all. Thank you for your input, though. I do appreciate it.
The last time we rebalanced I think it was early 2017, something like that. We trusted in idea that making it higher DPM than 430 that was in design back then would be good enough to differentiate two vehicles and make them different and create a fan base around each of them. Apparently, it is not. Apparently, there is a migration towards 430. It's pretty much obvious. The question is to find a good way to do it, just like with STB1 and Leopard 1. Not to, just turn a switch and then you guys in a year or two will say, look, we have a proof, you got this pattern, we're buffing one tank, everybody runs towards it, and then you're nerfing it, and then you're buffing another one, and manipulate us and make us and milk us on that. So what we are focused on is to find these niches where each vehicle and each tier 10 vehicle deserves it, will have its own fan base that will try to prove everybody else that this vehicle is the best one. This is a perfect world. We're not there.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Just for context, I do appreciate it. There are 70 tier 10 vehicles, so it is going
that is fair.
to keep them all in the scale of balance.
Thankfully, we got 5 classes. It makes cohortization a little bit easier, but yeah.
I look forward to having the chance to bring my 1-2-1 out with some new when we get to that. When we get there, just keep things moving again. Cody hasn't had a chance to pop in a question for a while. Cody, what you got?
All right, since we're on the topic of rebalance, which sorry, Max, moving on, the T125. We kind of see you guys are, super testing it, looking to change the T125, but really only touching like the gun reload and accuracy. It really is still going to be outclassed by the Super Conqueror. Have you considered getting it 10 degrees of gun depression instead of the 8 degrees, and possibly like some mobility changes, because you've released the M54 Renegade and people love that tank? Why not kind of shift the T125 a little bit towards the Renegade when kind of the design of it calls for 10 degrees of gun depression?
Yeah, the reverse speed would help.
Guys, you know what? Just to make it very short, I'll pass this idea to head of balance. I, to be honest, didn't dive into this particular case deep enough to give you an intelligent answer on that. I think, or I tend to believe, that the way guys are working with it right now, it's about keeping the play style roughly as it is, while, for example, changing the depression strongly will change the way how the tank is being utilized on different landscapes and on different maps. But I'll ask. That's what I promise. I'll ask. And basically, I'll ask as soon as I will stop answering.
I appreciate that.
I feel compelled to add that the number one ask from the community regarding balancing the E5 is just removing the cupola from the turret, because it's such an obvious one to hit.
It is. Unfortunately, this is how the tank looked like.
Yeah.
Sometimes, especially winter mornings, when I'm watching into the mirrors and God damn, I got a too big nose. Maybe I should go, do some plastic. But this is how I do look like. Maybe if I will do plastic, I will look better, but it's gonna not be me.
We need to get the 125 some cosmetic surgery.
So this is how the tank was designed. If you research the question, you probably know that this T110E series was a very interesting feat of engineering, because the idea was to create a vehicle that can fight in underground tunnels in Alps. So the chassis, the base of the vehicle, has a pretty accurate measurement to basically block a tunnel in Switzerland. I'm serious now. That's a real story. So nobody produced them in any significant quantities, because this was a very specific utility vehicle to fight in these confined spaces as offense or as defense. So we have a non-turreted tank destroyer, turreted tank destroyer, and a tank, and a heavy tank. But with evolution of arms and offensive tools, and also nuclear weapons as well, at some point all these ideas were scrapped together with heavy tanks in general. So this is how it was designed. If we will cut it, it's not gonna be Leonardo DiCaprio anymore. It's gonna be somebody else.
I do
And,
think.
If you remember, I'm sorry, just one more sentence, being too talkative probably.
Sure.
If you remember, again, about 2 years ago, we patched that cupola, and it became much stronger. And out of the blue, an outsider tank really quickly becomes super duper popular, and basically was asking for a nerf. That happened in half a year or so.
Yeah, and if I could, since we're on the topic of kind of like rebalancing tier 10s, just so we can, bring up a topic I'm sure everyone's waiting to answer, or basically an answer for the T95 FV4201 and the Object 279E. We kind of see like the player base, a lot of us, think the tanks are really unbalanced. And especially in like rank battles, we see like almost like the entire teams filled with them in clan wars. Is there really any plans to make any changes to these tanks? Because you can just see it when there's full teams of these things. Like, is there any plans to rebalance them, basically?
So at the moment, what I would prefer to do, this is something that we are discussing currently. By currently, I mean I had a call on that today. Right? So this is something we are looking into. However, before getting harsh and rebalancing these vehicles, I would try to find a different solution first. Maybe, and again, I'm speculating at the moment. It's not like what we really will do, right?
Speculate away.
Yeah, we're thinking of doing.
We like speculations.
Starting from what we can do with matchmaker rules, up to some crazy points of, okay, let's ban all non-generic vehicles from ranked. So right now we're in the phase of brainstorming. So everybody jumps in and throw all the wild ideas in. The moment we will find something that is both solid, logical, and interesting enough, we will try to toy with that. If it fails, and it might, then maybe we will consider doing something with vehicles themselves. However, why I'm so defensive on them? To get one is a hell of a job. So a person who really invested, especially, I'm not even talking about Chieftain, right? I'm talking about 279. A person who has invested his tremendous efforts into earning this vehicle should have something he will be happy with. So then, thus damaging that achievement probably will be a very last resort I would agree to take.
Okay, thanks for the answer.
So yes, it's in the pipeline. Probably we are going to do something about that this year. We won't start with bashing the vehicle with a hammer for sure. If we will have new other good ideas.
So speaking of the ranked and competitive scene being overwhelmed with this, certain types of vehicles, some of the things that, sort of, for me personally, in Clan Wars, it's the same tanks, it's the same strategies a lot of the times on the same maps all the time. So my suggestion would be maybe to introduce certain provinces where you can only have like a tier 7, and that might be a little bit tough, or maybe you eliminate all Russian tanks just for this battle. It'll force the callers and the strategy and in the Clan Wars activities to change dramatically, and it would be a lot less stale through the entire campaign, sort of deal. So I really like the idea of you going through and at least trying alternative ways to try and change up those balances.
Makes sense. We spoke about that in the Minsk stream not that long ago. That we have this long term intention of how we will evolve clan wars specifically. We have a separate team that is 100% of time on that, and with the events, they're every time trying some elements and mechanics of a future thing that we are building. So, like wheels and clocks and screws and pieces are being tested to assemble something at the end. This sounds like a pretty interesting idea to me. To be honest, never thought about that before. While we are doing a similar experiment or planning a similar experiment for non-clan activities or for the game in general, hopefully later this year, we didn't thought about that in that particular way for clans before. So thank you again. Pass with the team next time. I'm gonna talk with them. Interesting one.
Yeah, my last suggestion would be maybe on like the basic front, you could do like a 7v7 or an 8v8 or a 9v9, and that might help bring in smaller clans because they can't field those multiple full 15-man teams, but maybe they can field a night of 2 8-man teams. So you might be able to help smaller clans that way. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but I do have another question.
For that, we have a different idea, but the intention is, yes, to bring smaller clans to the scene, to make as much people involved into a global map story as possible, and maybe move it a little bit, again, in philosophical meaning, move it towards, I know, even line or Crusader Kings, something like that, with politics and stuff constantly being changed and the powerful entities being destroyed from inside and things like that.
I'm on board. I'm on board.
I see Cody giving a thumbs up there too.
All right, I got one more question. This has been burning on me for a very long time. So I saw that there's news of a new T-34-85 3D skin with a little flag on the top of it. And I would love for tanks to be a little less static in the game. So I don't know if you've ever considered adding antenna physics or animating some of the loose 3D parts that hang off of the tanks. Would you consider maybe adding even the ability to like customize different flags, like you can do emblems, that kind of thing? I love personalizing my vehicles.
Okay, thank you, 13.
Yes,
I really appreciate this question.
Give Andrey we'll give him a breather.
It's about time, yeah. Okay, back to business. So, first off, you guys probably noticed through like many years already that we like to highlight or test or like smoke test some features way before they're going into production with some like smaller signals of it, or within the events, or attached to some events or some holidays or whatever. So yeah, your noticing and way of thought really correct. So we are thinking right now, and we want to see how it goes, how this like flag actually works, and are players happy? Is there demand for this type of customization? And definitely we have a lot of ideas how to implement this in the future. So right now we will see how it goes. It really is connected to Victory Day, and we will see. I'm not sure that we can add a lot of other elements, right? But right now we are yes, it's true. We are thinking about the area of such kind of flags, or I don't know, banners, if you call it.
I do want to specifically mention that 13 has brought up the topic of antenna physics on our streams, every stream for the last 2 years. Wants to see him bounce and wave, and I don't blame. But it's all a matter of what can be fit into the production schedule. I do have a point of clarification. From earlier in the stream, there was some confusion in chat regarding Andrey's answer on the T110E5. He was not saying that the T110E5 could not be balanced because of the cupola, just that the T110E5 would not be balanced by the removal of the cupola.
Yes.
So there was some...
That's exactly what I said. Because removal of the cupola will stop making it T110E5. It's gonna be some different beast.
Okay.
So we will try to save the old guy.
That's just for you, chat. We are reading. All right, Nick, you ready? You got another question loaded?
Yeah, I have two. One of them should be pretty easy. Just really quick, is there any word on the Minsk changes coming anytime soon? I know it was announced a while ago, and there hasn't been much news about it that I've personally.
Yeah, me again. Okay, so yes, we already approached this map and the rebalance, and we actually tested it internally, and we did succeed in solving some issues with this map. However, some of other like issues that we want to fix are really connected to the historical geometry of the city, and we live in actually, right? So we can walk. No, right now we cannot, but still. We have some ideas how to approach and solve these issues with the map, and I think we will get back to this map and to work on that during the summer. So right now we are focused on Pearl River, right? That is going to be released quite soon. And I think right after we finish it, we will get back to reworking Minsk, because it needs a bit more changes than we expected.
Okay, cool. I'm happy to hear that it's not been forgotten about. My other question, this one is probably going to be more frustrating. I apologize in advance. I'm sure you guys get questions about soap rocks, right? Or the slippery rocks, right? I can't imagine you guys have not been asked about this. As far as a couple issues with current maps, is there any word? Last I heard, it had something to do with the engine, the physics engine that's used. Is there any word on soap rocks being sort of put towards the top? Because for me, there have been times where I've quit playing the game for weeks because I slid off of a rock and flipped my bat chat. Like, it is one of the most frustrating things. There are also issues with certain maps, particularly El Haluf, where there's some mesh issues. Certain corners aren't modeled correctly, and I'm just curious if that's even noted. I'm sure it is, but just to hear it would be nice.
Okay, yes, you're totally right that it's connected to part of the Havoc physics in our engine. So, Andrey, can you take it?
Sure. So basically, it's two elements of the same problem that we are having with the game since 1.0 release, when we glued in Havoc physics as well. So on an interlink or intersection of Havoc physics and our own physics system, that was in the game before. We have certain specific issues. So one of them is bits of a map when you sometimes cannot shoot through a thin air or can shoot through rocks and walls. It's when so-called havoc body, something behind the landscape that is used for different elements of havoc and physical environmental physics that we operate with havoc. It has a lower resolution than our own physics engine, and there are basically gaps or things that terrain believe exist while shot physics believe does not. So this is something that is a problem for a long while, and we are working with Havoc team to find a solution. They are not exactly product made for server-based games, so it is complicated, and it's probably there are many people on our team who has much better capacity to answer that on a technical level than I am, to be honest.
Okay.
But, yeah, this is kind of purely technical problem on intersection of our product and third-party product. And same goes with the slippery rocks. So before 1.0, we were basically not modeling rocks that you can move over as separate objects. So they were governed by logics that operate terrain and worked like terrain. Since 1.0, we start to model some pieces of environment as a separate object to make them look more authentic, more beautiful, stuff like that. And once they become not a terrain, they become a subject of a different physics model. And, and we have this problem. So I hope we will find a solution soon, but it lasts for a while, and it's a big pain in the ass, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Sorry
like I said, I'm
about
sure you
that,
hear about
guys.
it all the time. I do appreciate, again, the acknowledgement that is a problem and is being worked on. I'm very happy to hear that.
All right, yeah, it is good to get an update on that. I know that's been a tricky problem for us to solve, especially since the 1.0. All right, Cody, you got one ready in the wings?
Yes, I have a couple map questions since we're on the topic of maps. First one, talking about 1.0, some old maps and even ones removed before then. Do you have any plans to bring back maps such as like South Coast or Windstorm, Swamp, Stalingrad, ones that were kind of removed before 1.0? And also back around 1.0, you guys were talking about maps like Ensk and Mines, which at high tiers are really small. Do you still plan on reworking them to like enlarge them or possibly like re-envision them and add more like areas in?
So, okay, I will take that. So let me divide the question in two parts, right? First, when we were going to release 1.0, we understood the minimum roster of the maps that we must have, so the number especially, and those that we were the most sure about the gameplay that we did correctly after reworking. And there were, if I'm not mistaken, about 27 or 28 maps at the release, and right now it's 32 or 33. So yes, our plan was to release like minimum amount of maps that will make our matchmaker work correctly, and they were quite diverse, and then to add more maps that are that we are sure having good gameplay after rework, and we can rework it in time. So we did it, and right now we have like two ways, right? Old maps that are not working, that were removed from before 1.0 because they were actually bad, and this bad is not possible to fix these issues easily, but we need to have maps reworked from the scratch. So we have a roster of these maps that you named, like Windstorm, Swamp, Stalingrad, South Coast, and there are some maps like Ensk or Mines that we really had idea to enlarge for 10-tier battles. However, right now we see that it really takes a lot of work, and we need to completely reimagine those maps. And as we introduced the in premium account and basic account slots for removing some maps from your roster, we understood that actually all the maps are really close to each other, and there are no maps that are really off the limits that players really hate. So we don't want to remove Ansk or Mines from the from the roster right now, and it would be really hard to reimagine those maps because they're classic. They are really out there for quite a long time, and many players really love them. So right now, what we are focused on is, as I mentioned in the beginning, bringing back the maps that we believe will work, like Pearl River, and we have some more maps upcoming, like Berlin, a new map. So bringing back old good maps and bringing new maps, right? And after that, we will definitely get to board and think: should we create some entirely new maps, or should we get back and work with nostalgia, with Windstorm, for example, or Stalingrad, and rework them completely, but do some, noticeable and known objects from this map there, just to remind players that these maps existed. So I think for this year, Berlin and Pearl River are the two maps that will be brought into game. However, we're also creating a lot of maps for our game modes and for events that will be there, like for Steel Hunter, for example, and Halloween, etc. They will all get their own brand maps. And I think we will get back to this question when we are discussing roadmap for upcoming year, for the next one, and we will definitely find what will be the next. So that's the answer.
Thanks for that. That's awesome.
Do you have a follow-up, Cody?
No, that was pretty much with the map question. He answered it.
Cool. All right.
I tried my best.
You finally got Max in the rotation again. I love it. 13, you ready to drop your next one?
Yeah. So speaking of the maps, one of the things that I really love is the unique audio experience when you first drop in, where you have the different audio for each map, and that's something I really like, and it sets kind of the mood when you get into them. So I am wondering if there's any plans to add more sounds for like tanks firing or moving around or engine noises or that kind of thing to the game, if there's anything like that in the pipeline.
Yes, it's good that you noticed about our sound. It changed completely with 1.0. We actually moved to a new sound engine not long before 1.0, and it helps us to create sounds in much better quality. It helps us to randomize sounds because the sound bank of the sound is consists from different sounds. They're combined in like some random order to create completely new sound each time, right? So this was our way how to achieve this variety. Definitely, some engines were in real life they sounded the same, and a bit hard to get over it. However, our team is working hard to provide like top quality music for each map and really unique one. And we are also trying to see and participate maybe in some collaborations with musicians from out there, from the regions that are referenced in this map. So I think the answer is like that. It's nothing like too huge completely that we're working right now, not like super big changes. However, definitely our sound design team is working like 24/7 to improve sound engine, to improve sound banks for our game, and it could be not really easily detected by players without good sense of sound. However, we're trying to improve it all the time.
Max,
thanks for that.
may I drop in a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
There is one very specific limitation factor. Like, if we will dig deeper into your question, there is a limiting factor that stops us from making, for example, more diverse gunshot noises or sounds or engine noises or things like that. And it is memory that is required to store sound banks. And the fact that we still are supporting very, very outdated PCs. We basically sometimes joke that we are almost as good to run on a calculator. This is a pretty important part for us because a significant part of our community worldwide are people who do not have a top-notch hardware. I think all of us in this conversation should, right, to have really nice PCs, but not all of our players do. So we are very strict, like super strict, on keeping game operational on PCs that were mediocre 10 years ago.
It is.
The game's still doing that. So,
it is astonishing how well the game runs on old hardware. I will give you that.
So this is an achievement, and this is a ball on a chain as well, because it makes us stop sometimes when we could move further on, because that move will mean that we either start to provide even more different experience to owners of old and new hardware, or we will need to drop to support certain specific configuration, like especially low, so specifically PCs with very small amount of RAM. So this is what we're trying to dance around.
Yeah, I guess like last time when you had the HD and the SD client, you'll have to have the HD and SD audio client. Thank you for the answer. I appreciate that.
Thank you. No.
You don't want to manage 3 different clients for release, Andrey?
It's 4, man. It's SD, HD, SD, HD. Thank you so much.
Shout out to our friends at Intel for helping make that possible. I know that one of my personal favorite evolutions of the game over the years has been the development of unique sound profile.
Mm-hmm.
For the different maps, and I think like Stujanki is a favorite, I think, of a lot of people on the NA, and definitely in our office. The music for Stujanki is so unique and so characterful. I hope we see more of that in the future. Okay, sorry, I have a bird problem. Nick, are you ready for next question?
Is that what that is? There's a bird flying around in here.
Yeah, I got another question here. This could lead back into what you said with the memory. Over the years, we've seen mods become integrated to the base game. Is, for one, that intended to keep happening? And two, some of the, I'd say one of the more popular mods you could find it basically in any mod pack is battle hits. Is there a chance we could see something like battle hits, or even like what you have in World of Warships, where an in-game armor viewer, where you don't have to go to a third-party website like TanksGG, so on and so forth? Is that a possibility of putting that in the game?
Okay, I can maybe start, and Andrey will add some more flavor to the answer. Okay, so about the mods, yes, as you noticed, we even had some updates like several years before, which were just filled with a lot of things coming from the mod. The mods are a really good indicator for us to understand what community really needs. You know, the shortcut road that you can see that the guys are taking. So it's really inspirational, and we are trying to do as much as possible what players do need. It's not easy all the time because mods are not as stable as our client should be, and there are some also shortcuts there that we have to do a bit differently, and we have to do a lot of testing. However, yes, we are working on that, and we are all the time trying to see what's next from the mods that should be integrated into the game. And answering the second part of the question in brief, and I say Andrew will add more details about Armored Inspector. Yes, it's planned. Yes, it is even in the roadmap for us. Maybe not for this year, but for next year, definitely we will touch it. We already had some brief design approach to the design of it, and we are believing that it should be in the game, but definitely we need to understand how it should be implemented, because there are many other stuff combined with this feature that are really difficult to implement. So Andrew, can you elaborate on that maybe?
Yeah, sure. So let's start with Armored Inspector really briefly. The key, this is for us, it's take 3 on that feature. The key issue is it adding up a significant backdoor for cheats, because the client will start to know stuff that client shouldn't know. There are right now some modifications that allow you to preview armor even in client, but they all rely on a third-party services, basically at the web storage somewhere that you need to contact in order to get this data. So it is in practical, in real time, in case you're trying to build something like a smart aiming system or I know on the fly evaluation of effective armor thickness on the enemy vehicle, and so on and so forth. In case we will implement it properly, so with the right collision models that are used to determine armor, it could be very vulnerable for subsequent cheat developments that we will need to fight later on. So two times we assaulted and fell back. This is right now we are on the third wave. If there will be a nice engineering decision on how to make it safe, then we will go. We have lots of parts of that designed for ages now. So this is a stopping factor for us. That's why I cannot even guarantee that it will happen this time again. But we are persistent, and we are bashing that closed door, and it will open. This is a principal reason. It is insecure. So then for talking about basically team health, right?
Yeah, right.
For frontline, we redesigned HUD combat UI from scratch when we were building frontline. It's very similar, of course. I mean, players should be able to understand it, and it operates using the same principles, but it is different, and it's brand new. And with that feature in mind, we removed a lot of other pieces. Our random battles HUD is cluttered and old, and I'm waking up and every morning having morning coffee thinking when the fuck we will fix that. Yes, but together we need to clean up the HUD as a rule. At the moment, a modification is given you as a user a freedom to decide if the UI is cluttered enough for you, or you can clutter it more. If you recall, maybe I know I was a very active World of Warcraft player in 2004 till 2007, and a friend of mine who was playing healer in a raid, and I checked his UI and walk away dazzled because I have no idea what he was playing, and I think he could play Excel spreadsheet with the same level of interactivity as he did. So but he felt comfortable with that, and he was doing his thing, and he had fun. So a modification allows you as a user to decide where you're still having fun and where it is too much for you. And every time you're adding something to the game, it's basically your decision to try and your decision to remove. By doing something similar, a super customizable UI, we're creating lots and lots and lots of options, and we know that absolute majority of our players are having trouble by setting up all the things we already do have. So adding up more will not make their life better. Adding up more clutter to HUD will not make their life better. Again, I'm talking about majority, like big, very often silent majority of players who altogether compose our audience.
Right.
So yes, we want. Yes, you got it proved because we have it in Frontline. We want to clean up and then add some stuff we are missing before just throwing everything inside. That's the answer.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd
thank
love
you.
to see. I'd love to see the minimum spot ring on the mini map. That's more clutter.
You got a mode probably.
Yes,
one more
I do have
addition. Question from the chat. Yes, guys say that we should incorporate every small mod into the game as soon as possible. So, which we actually agree, not maybe every, but every good one. And they ask, why don't we just buy mods from mods developers, like the guys who do mods? And instead we are trying to reinvent them ourselves. So why we just not buy them from these guys? So as I touched this before, and I think Andrew can add some more spice into it. So it's it's completely different on working on a very complex ecosystem with tons of code and everything depending on each other and should be stable on all the systems, like on all the types of PCs and QA, like do quality assurance on all this stuff, and making a mod that probably will work or will be broken after one update, etc. So, and not drop your FPS, etc. Because from wargaming, you definitely expect a certain quality, right? So if it was so easy, definitely we would buy like tomorrow all the modes and just integrate them into game client. We would be the most happiest people on the world because we will provide you guys with things that works without any mods, any installation or whatever, just from vanilla client. However, this is much more difficult than it seems.
And I do want to, there is a long history of the World of Tanks development team adding mods or the features of mods. I think most recently the session stats is an example of one that started as a mod and has since become a feature in the game. So there is a process there, but it does take time. So I do have a question from our Latin American community that I wanted to slip in here. Do you have any plans to add vehicles of Latin America or other parts of the world that might not have enough material for a tech tree of their own? And if so, how would you do it? And there's also an addendum about an Argentinian tank that enunciated in Russian apparently translates to an impolite send-off.
Yeah, so
it got a bad name. It is.
Does it translate?
Yeah, so Andrew, yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, so as Andrew actually said, like half an hour before, that with Collectible Shop we opened up like a small window or a door for us for the future, how we can implement such nations that just don't have enough to be compiled in one logical tech tree from tier 1 to tier 10. So yes, we opened up this. We have plans for upcoming like nations for this year, right? We actually, as we announced in December, we're gonna have 3 through the years. The first one was 2-barreled guns, and we also announced that 2 more tech trees will be added for existing nations. and one of them will be Polish tanks that we already announced, and I think the second we will keep a bit of a secret right now and announce it a bit later. So we have a plan for this year, but definitely we will come back to on drawing board when we are planning 2021. Japanese TDs, not yet, guys, not yet. I see it in chat. Yeah.
I think the Argentinians will be pleased with that. At least to hear that there's some thoughts on it. All right, 13 and Kat, I kick it over to you.
All right. Thanks for that. I do have a question. Are there any plans in the works to expand the Twitch Prime going forward? I know that kind of like ended a little bit there. Just wondering if there's anything in the pipeline for that.
Yes, guys, and we are very close to announce it. Not yet. We still have to discuss all bits and pieces with Twitch, with our partners, and finalize how it should look like. But we are working right now towards the upgrade of this, and definitely we'll see much more of Twitch drops and Twitch deals and packaging available. So we are working really hard right now and are in like final touches of what's coming up next.
So
I eagerly await that.
You mentioned Twitch drops specifically, so you guys are planning to.
We are right now discussing with Twitch, and definitely we're really interested in this. I really hope that we can elaborate and finalize this with our partner and deliver it, because we understand that it's very useful and very cool tool for streamers and for players that watch Twitch, and definitely we're very interested in that.
Awesome.
Very excited about that myself. All right, Nick, you got another one ready? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Max.
10th anniversary rewards. Okay, I will just really quickly jump on it. Yes, guys, as you noticed, with 1.9, we just launched the first episode of Countdown to 10th anniversary, and in August we're preparing something really special for you, for all the players. And right now, I don't want to spoil the surprise. As you know, we definitely will provide you with some cosmetics, 3D camo in this progress for the countdown, but it's not all. We are preparing much more interesting things that you all will love. I believe that.
Cool. I'm really excited to hear that. All right, and see.
Yes, something. Not everything at the same time, guys. Please.
Yeah, of course.
We have to fit it in the roadmap. It's very important.
It's already there.
So the question I had was, now that it's full, you said it before, you guys like, as far as any changes you make to, interpret the data on them, how has the anonymizer been received at Wargaming? Because in my experience with players, it seems to be a net positive. I've heard very little, at least in my community, on the negative side. I'm curious how that is for you guys.
Sorry, was it received negatively?
No, how was it received? Negatively, positively, just as a whole? How does Wargaming view the addition of the?
Yeah, but in your community, it was received well,
positively, generally
positively. Okay, because I misunderstood that. Yeah, so okay. Guys, it was a really long-awaited feature, and we are really glad that we delivered it last year, and this. Actually, around the world, it's received very positively, especially by streamers, guys that are subject to stream sniping and all that stuff, And for gaming guys and for guys with a high winning rate as well, it's much easier right now to play, and you're like feeling that you are safer than you were before. So right. Yeah, for everyone, it's really positive. If you want to show off, if you want to show your nickname, so it's like alternative feature for all the players. So you're free to use it. So it's only positive reactions towards this around the world and inside the company as well.
Cool. I'm really happy to hear that.
All right, Cody, I see you. You ready?
All right, so I guess shifting topics, the Battle Pass. So regarding the Battle Pass, I guess it's a two-part question. A, do you plan on bringing, I guess, allowing people to progress while playing Grand Battles, Frontline, and other modes instead of, I guess, 15 versus 15 battles? And also, do you consider, giving, I guess, premium account holders like a discount for purchasing the improved pass, or even making the improved pass part of the premium account instead of making people spend another like recurring payment basically for it?
Okay, so I also will start, and maybe Andrey will help me on that as well. So let's divide it into two parts. The first part about the progression, and right now it counts in random, but definitely there are ranked battles, frontlines, other events like custom events, and it's a very good. It's not like a very good idea, but it's the things that we already thought. It's not really easy to implement because every event has its different difficulty. And for example, to be top 3 in ranked battles, especially high ranking, and in random battles, it's completely different effort and thing. So we need to adjust all this by difficulty curve. And we definitely want to do that in the future, especially with things that are repetitive, right? Maybe it's not a very good idea to add this in, for example, some kind of modes that use like special tanks to participate in them or something like that. But it's something for usual regular modes. This how it should be, and we are working on that. Yes. And second part of the question was about some kind of influence of premium account for price of battle pass or things that you get in there. And right now we are thinking how to develop battle pass further and bigger, make it bigger and on a bigger scale. And this is one of the ideas we are also discussing. The main difference of our battle pass or from battle passes from other titles is that you have a free part of the battle part, basic part, right, available to everyone. Despite you are paying user or not paying user. So, and I think this is a correct approach here. And we will think further on how to develop this, how to enrich the contents of the battle pass for both parts, for basic parts and premium part. And also how to incorporate battle pass with the rest of the systems of the game. So yeah, it's a good question. I don't have all the answers right now because we still need to see how it works. It's only the first season right now, and we need to see how it ends, how was the progression, how players' reaction towards that, how many players passed the battle pass, and see what changes should be done in there. But we're already discussing before it even finished. We're already discussing the potential changes that should be done in there. Andrew, do you want to add something here?
Yeah, a little bit. For talking about battle pass progression, again, we acknowledge that there are way too many progressions recently, like expedition progression and some other progression, and you also have this research trees with their own progression and so on and so forth. One of the fundamental ideas behind Battle Pass was to, in case it is successful and we will run it on a permanent basis or semi-permanent basis with multiple installments every year, with a clear schedule, is to utilize it as a main body for multiple different progressions. So we have this plan. Can guarantee it's not going to happen this year. So this year, as Max said, we have basically a trial. Then season 2 is effectively a relaunch and our training camp, how to quickly and cheaply reutilize that code and move it across the versions, because it's also a little bit technical with code and data merging. and plug in different rewards. So if these two things are getting smoothly, then third season we are planning for this year might see some changes, but anything big is definitely coming next year, whatever it is gonna be. This is talking about Battle Pass. Then talking about advantages for premium account users. There was a question on one of the streams I did last week about subscriptions. Maybe I didn't thought about that, to be honest. From the first glance, I kind of don't really like this idea, but I need to think about it more. Maybe it might become a bit a part of subscription. I don't know. I need to think about that.
Yeah, well, thanks for the answer. I think that answered both parts.
Future development's always exciting. All right, folks, we are bumping into our last 15 minutes here. Let's plan for this to be the last round of questions. And if you got one that's really burning a hole in your Word document, now's the time to get it off your chest.
Already? It's really passed too quickly.
Well, yeah, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah,
Or getting grilled.
I was just sitting here, so time passed quickly.
So one last thing, and I know it's been a little bit of a theme on some of my questions, was the pay for advantage mechanics in the game, which doesn't fly all that well in the US at least. So in my opinion, when it comes to like the new collector's tanks, have you considered adding in the premium tanks that are in the game as collector tanks and then selling tokens to upgrade vehicles into premium vehicles? That way you can buy a vehicle for credits, try it, so that gets rid of your needing rentals to try something before you invest in it. And then maybe once you've discovered a tank that you absolutely love, for instance, I loved the KV2 before it had the premium added, then I could say, you know what, I love playing this tank so much that even after I move on, I want to continue playing it. Why don't I flip it for a premium tank, and then I can get a little more credits and a little more crew EXP, and I can play it whenever the mood strikes.
Max, can I start and then you'll finish?
Yes.
So there are two questions hidden in one.
Yep.
For the first bit about making vehicle premium, if you recall, this Christmas holidays or past Christmas holidays, we allow everybody to premiumize the tanks they were picking.
Yeah.
So this was a specific test for us. Thanks to COVID-19 and all the stuff, I still do not have a report on hands, and it didn't actually. I was expecting significantly louder community reaction on that feature, like frankly speaking, and it didn't happen. So I think our analyst team saw that as well, and that generation of that report is somewhere on the bottom of their priority list at the moment, but we might get to that at some point. So we did a test. Mm-hmm. This is something we are considering and we are toying with. Doesn't mean that it will happen, of course. It just means that we're looking into it. The second bit about try before you buy, we do have an idea thanks to a stream last week with a community contributor from CIS cluster, Protanki. He's also a maker of lots of game modes. You probably you might know his mode packets. If you don't, please try it. It's really cute, by the way. So he asked it, look, guys, you had it in Frontline when you can rent a tank, and then at the end of Frontline season, buy it with a discount of your rental. So why you don't sell all the tanks like that? And they go, oh, indeed, why? So that was a pretty neat idea, and I'm quite positive that we will look into it really deeply. So I like this approach. Like, take it for a while. I don't know, 24 hours, a week. I don't know. We need to measure. We need to think. Try it. If you don't like it, okay, fine. You had your premium farming time. You paid a little. You can go to the next one, or you can keep the weekly if you liked it. It's sounds for me a little bit simpler than toying with this premium tokens and premium collectors. Also, from the first glance, it's a little bit overcomplicated. But generally speaking, yes and yes. Max, will you add anything?
It's not much to be added here, but yes, guys, if you see some new mechanics that is on the live server, it really could be a test of something big that we want to test on a smaller scale or on a time-limited scale within the event. So please, observe this, and if we don't point it out too vividly, there could be some reasons for that. So maybe we just wanted to go under in sneak mode, so we don't have really swayed our analytics, right? Just to get more clean data. So yeah, we thought about that. It's actually a good idea, and we will think when we can implement it or try it out for the second time.
Cool, thank you.
All right, Nick, you got a final question prepared?
I think that should be it for me for the most part. Oh, I do have one thing actually. I know it was mentioned a while ago. Is there any updates we can get on the Italian heavies coming?
Not yet.
Simple. Not yet? Okay. That's all then. That's about all I got.
Cody?
Surprise.
All right, well, I guess I have one more question. So the Crew 2.0 rework. A lot of people are confused about it, even myself. Can you guys give us any insight into it, such as how commanders, the units, and I guess the counselors or special crews will work?
And I pass it to this guy.
Then, if you should ask it as the first one.
Then it would be the only one, right?
Well, okay. So I'll try to be as clear as possible. But we'll start with a small story. Basically, once we tried to announce it aloud to public on a big stream recently, we figure out that we probably overcomplicated it a bit. The main point is we do not want you to continue to mess up with multiple crew members. We want to give you one entity, similar to ships or console tanks, that will have a skill tree or skill matrix that you can level up the entity and learn new skills. Pure, I think, pretty simple still. So we also want this new crew to be capable of driving multiple tanks without a necessity to relearn them every time. We also want this new entity to be somewhat customizable. So the counselors are the ways to customize or further enhance your new crew by adding up skill points to specific skills. So think about it as about a gem inserted to a sword in Diablo. You have a counselor, and it's a prominent character. It could be somebody famous. I don't know, Offspring band member, for example. That will
more like rune ward from Diablo, I think.
Whatever, but Santa Claus. Okay, Santa Claus will do fine, and he's bringing up a special knowledge to your crew that will either allow you not to learn something whatsoever, or will enhance your knowledge, your skill to a certain degree, extra. That is unachievable without this guy. So what was a unit, or whatever, battalion, whatever you like to call it? It was a container to hold several builds. So if I can have several tanks, maybe I should have several builds in my matrix, because one of the reasons we even started to work with crew was to get rid of people using exact same build everywhere. It's boring. It's automatic. I'm not even thinking when I'm learning skills anymore, and it's very long as well. So we wanted to make it shorter and make it more interesting to tune for your vehicle and or your playstyle. So this led us to skill matrix, and there you can have builds. So I can build my IS-7 crew a little bit different than Maxwell, for example, because he prefer to play it more aggressively and more as a shock attack vehicle than I, who prefer to play it more as a tanky defensive vehicle, for example. So that's about those things. However, once we try to explain it from the first go, we understood that it is, we definitely overcomplicated. We tried to put everything into that device, making it a printer and a scanner and a sound recorder and a monitor and then also a table and a chair. And it's a little bit too much for a single piece of stuff. So we probably will scrap the idea of units. We'll just keep one single entity. We will keep counselors, and we are right now in depth of discussion how to properly integrate into it ability to drive multiple vehicles. Because in the previous idea, a unit had 4 commanders. Each commander had a counselor, and each commander could drive his own vehicle. It looked logical for us, but apparently a little bit too complicated. Did I manage to answer?
Yes, that was actually pretty good. I understand it a lot better.
Yeah, I mean,
Andrey spent a lot of time preparing this and trying this out, so it would be really understandable. I know that.
It's actually funny, but maybe an hour after we finished streaming in Minsk, one of my colleagues Skyped me and said, "Damn man, if you fail to explain this design, we should change the design." Like, oh damn,
he has a point.
He's right. He's right.
Personally, I've bought a lot of Tiger 131s or Cromwell Bs to get multiples of the 0 skill crew members, and I might be in the minority on this one, but personally, I would love to just be able to move my crews throughout tanks, because like my friend here, Cody Menz, he's got, 500 or so tanks in his garage, and he plays whatever 600, my correction there. And he can play anything, but he's got all these crews that are underdeveloped to try and have that many vehicles, and it would be great for me to be able to have that kind of vehicle breadth and then just move crews through them that would be appropriate for that tank style. And I also agree with you. It would be great to be able to mold a crew into a tank that fits a certain role with the way that I play it. So I love all these ideas. I'm really looking forward to the sandbox.
And one more question from the chat. The guys are asking what gonna happen with maxed out crews. So guys, definitely there will conversion mechanism that will not left any of you behind, guys. So we are working, and it's always our main goal to make sure that every effort gets counted.
But by the way, about maxed crews, as we're digging this topic at the moment, I remember some data that could be fun. We have, I think, a little bit more than a dozen of people in the world that are above 11 perks. They have who have a crew member with more than 11 perks.
Wow.
And this is the most trained crews that we have in entire game.
Wow.
So we're not talking press accounts and all that stuff, right? This is somebody who have 11 perks, and I know
they should get a medal. Yeah, it should be a special award.
Appreciate it, man. If you hear this is a hell of a job.
Thank you for the insight into that. That is a really complicated issue. I think you nailed it, Andrey. All right, so we are going to wrap up here. I do have a request for one final simple question from Nick. Nick, if you're ready, go ahead and fire away.
Thank you so much. Is there any word on a third set of personal missions? I think set 1 and 2 have been received pretty positively, outside of the 279 being a little overtuned, but we talked about that obviously just a little. Is there any word on bringing more personal campaigns for cool, unique tanks like the Chimera, the Excalibur, the T-55A, and all that stuff?
Max, close this one.
Well, to answer it short, like not really.
Okay.
Yes.
Anything is possible in the future. On that note, folks, we are going to wrap it up.
Not for now.
Thank you so much for staying up late to hang out with us, Max. We really appreciate it, providing some insight into the current developments. Do you guys have any final words you want to say before it's time to go?
Yeah, so I also noticed two big questions about like EBRs. I think the guys just missed the first question in the stream. Yes, we're gonna do something about that. And RT, yes, but not before we launch the next sandbox with a new system of RT. So like you guys will see it and we'll be able to try it out. So, and thanks a lot. It was really fun, and I really believe that we, with Andrew, will be able to jump on such calls in the future more frequently. So, invite us. It's really cool. I know that only 2 hours, and they flew very fast. A lot of questions are still there, and definitely it would be good to discuss them and get to know more what's concerning American community.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
And
much,
Canadian.
guys. Yes, and Canadians.
Oh, did we move? All right. I think we just moved. All right. Thank you very much to all of you for coming out. Please go check out our community contributors, 13 Disciple, Cody Menz, and Nick Shocks. You can find 13 Disciples' website at 13disciple.stream. You can find Cody Menz's website at wattguru.com. Nick Shocks on Twitch at twitch.tv/Nick_Shocks. Please check those guys out. As you can see, they're all really informed, excellent players with a lot of experience. If you're looking to get better at the game, they can help you do that. If you're looking to learn more about the game, they can help you do that. Go check them out. Thanks again one more time to Andrey and Max for coming out and hanging out with us. They had to stay up till like midnight to do that, so that's super cool. Hopefully we'll be able to do this more in the future. Hopefully I will be able to get Max a version of Max's sweet Sabaton shirt that he flaunted all stream. And on that note, we're going to get out of here. Have a lovely weekend. We will see you on this stream if you're interested next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Central with our normal stream. And on that note, have a great day, everyone. Have a great weekend.